to begin our crochet poncho, we'll need 2 balls of the Hygge yarn by Red Heart. I thought it was Hygge at first, but it literally says Hygge. So the way this poncho is going to be worked is we're going to be using 2 balls at once. For the whole poncho, I use about 4 balls, which really could be 3 if you take the time to separate it into 2 separate strands. But so you'll need to start with 2 balls and then grab a 12mm crochet hook or whatever hook reaches gauge for you. And then you'll also need scissors and a darning needle to finish. So once you've grabbed your materials, let's meet back here and get started. So like I mentioned, we are going to be working 2 strands of yarn at the same time. If this is the first time you're doing it, just take it slow. It really is something that you're able to get used to quite easily. And so to begin, we're going to place a slip knot onto our hook. And then we are going to chain 46 stitches. And I'll make a note by saying it really is important to ensure that your gauge is matching my gauge. Otherwise, it won't be the same size piece or the same size poncho. So I'm gonna go ahead and chain 46 stitches. Okay, so I have 46 chains, and that's how many stitches I want in my foundation chain. So now we are going to work 1 row of single crochets across. But first, what we want to do is join our chain so that we're working in the round. So this is an important step because we really want to make sure that our chain is not twisted when we join. If it does get twisted, then your whole work will potentially need to start over. So I'm just going to make sure that like either all of the back of the chain or all of the front of the chain is facing one direction. So it's all facing this way, and then just take a quick look to see if any of it's twisted. So after looking, I can see that it's not twisted. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert my hook into the first chain and then work a slip stitch. Okay. So now we're just going to work a whole row of single crochets. So to begin, I'm going to chain 1 and then into the same stitch we slipped into, because that's the first stitch in the chain, we're going to go ahead and work a single crochet. So now you'll just work single crochets across this chain. And a tip that I'll share is that if you are having trouble with twisting the chain, or you don't feel confident that you haven't twisted your chain, you can work the row of single crochets flat across the foundation chain and then join that single crochet. It's a little bit easier to see what's going on, and that helped me when I was beginning this as well. So I'm just going to keep working single crochets, and I always go a little bit slower across the chain. That's just how I work. A little bit slower. Not by choice, but just by nature. Okay, so I just made it to the end. I'm gonna go ahead and count to make sure I have 46 single crochets. This might be a good thing for you to do just because sometimes when you're slipping a chain, it can get confusing. So before I join, I'm just gonna go ahead and count. So I have 46 stitches. I placed my hook through the 23rd stitch, and I'm actually gonna grab a stitch marker and put it in there. This is an optional step, but it might help you keep track of where to put your increases when you work the next rows. So now that I know that my chain isn't twisted and that I have the correct amount of stitches, I'm gonna go ahead and place a slip stitch into the first single crochet. So that was just our setup row, and that is the only row for the body of the poncho where we're going to be single crocheting. Whenever we add the turtleneck, or if you choose to add a turtleneck, you'll see that that kind of helped set up the turtleneck. So now I'm going to show you the row that'll be the repeat row for the rest of the poncho. So we are going to chain 3, and that's going to act as 1 double crochet. Into the same stitch that we slipped into from the previous round, we are going to place a double crochet. This acts as an increase. So we have the chain 3 in the double crochet. So technically that's 2 double crochets in the first stitch in the row. Now I'm going to double crochet until I hit my chain marker. Okay, so I've worked up until the stitch where my stitch marker is. We're now going to work the increases to help shape our poncho. So what I'm going to do is place 1 increase in this stitch and then 1 in the stitch right after. So in order to work an increase, we're just going to work 1 double crochet into the stitch and then work another double crochet into that same stitch. So that is a double crochet increase, and I'm just going to work that into the next stitch as well. Now to keep track of where we're going to increase the next row, I'm going to find the middle stitch of the first double crochet increase, and that's where I'm going to place my chain stitch. Or place my chain stitch marker. It's not perfect the way that crocheting works. It's going to be a little bit off center. If you wanted to keep it perfectly centered, you'd have to do a bit of switching it up every row. But for the ease of simplicity, every row you're just going to mark it in between the first 2 stitches of the double crochet increase. And I'll show you what I mean. So I worked up a full body of the poncho that we're working, and as you can see, it can't all fit on camera, but the double crochet increases slightly lean one way. And that's because just the nature of crocheting and crocheting in the round, things shift, and then also the increases aren't perfectly centered in the front. But we will be placing increases on the very middle front and then on the back as well. So I hope that provides a little bit more clarity, but we can keep moving on. So now I'm just going to work double crochets until I reach the end of the row. Okay, so I am 1 stitch away from ending this row. And so just like the front, we want to create another increase so we can have 2 double crochet increases. So I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the stitch, and then I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into this stitch. So now we have completed the row, and we're going to go ahead and insert our hook into the 3rd chain of the chain 3, and then we are going to work a slip stitch to join the row. So we've just completed our first row. It should start to look like a bit of a V. This will become more pronounced as we work more rows. But since this is a repeating row pattern, I'm just going to show you 1 more row on camera, and then the rest should be worked the same. So to begin, we're going to chain 3. Now we want to work that increase, so I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into the 3rd chain of our chain 3 of the previous round, and where we just slipped into. And so that works our first increase. I'm then going to just double crochet until I hit the front of the middle, or where we marked it with our stitch marker. Okay, so I've now made it to the middle of the front as marked by my stitch marker. I'm going to take that out, and then I'm going to work a double crochet increase. So I'm going to double crochet 1, double crochet another into that same stitch, and then I want to work 1 more increase, so I'm going to move to the next stitch, work a double crochet, and then work 1 more double crochet into that stitch. Now, to mark the next row, we're going to find that first double crochet increase right here, and then place the stitch marker in between the stitch of the 2 double crochets. And now we are just going to double crochet until we have 1 stitch left. Okay. So I have 1 stitch left in my row, so I'm going to work that double crochet increase, going to work 1 double crochet, and then 1 more into that same stitch. I'm then going to insert my hook into the 3rd chain of the chain 3 and work a slip stitch. So that is the repeat to create the rest of the body of the poncho. Okay. Not including the single crochet row, I worked 12 rows of double crochets. You can make it longer or shorter depending on your preference. I would probably try it on as you go to see how long you want to make it. But once you've finished the body, let's meet back here. So I finished the body of my poncho, and then to finish and secure it, I'm going to cut about a 6-inch tail, and then I'm going to work 1 chain stitch, pull that tight to make a knot, and then pull the tails through 1 more time, and then pull tight. I'm then going to grab my darning needle, put both tails of the yarn through, might have to twist them to get them to fit. And then I'm just going to secure my work. So I like to normally push it through to the back. And then I'm going to work down a double crochet and then just slide under a couple stitches. Then once you've done that, you can trim the tails so you have nothing showing. And then we've just completed the body of the poncho. If you don't want a turtleneck, you are done and good to go. So for those who do want to, we're going to jump to that next. Here is the poncho before the turtleneck. So like I mentioned before, if you want to not add a turtleneck, that's perfectly fine. I'll insert a clip of what the poncho looks like without the turtleneck, which might help you decide. But if if you do want to add a turtleneck, this is how you'll do it. And I should say there are multiple different ways to add turtlenecks. You can do just double crochets, which is what we're going to do, or you could do ribbing, which is a bit more advanced, and so I'm skipping that for this video, but maybe in future videos I'll include that. So to begin, we're going to place a slip knot onto our hook, and then we're going to do the best we can to find the first stitch in our row. So I can tell that this was the last stitch whenever we were working this way, because whenever we were building out the body, we're working out, but now we're working the opposite way. So I'm actually going to insert into the last stitch of the previous, or I guess the very first chain foundation row. So I inserted my hook, I'm then going to yarn over and pull through, and then I'm just going to slip into the slip knot and then pull tight. This is my favorite way to join to an already worked crochet piece. There are definitely other ways, but for the purposes of this video, this is how I'm going to start. I'm then going to chain 3, and this will act as our first double crochet. Next, I'm going to just work double crochets the whole way around, and 1 double crochet will go into 1 chain of the foundation chain. So it should just look like another stitch, depending on how you worked into your beginning chain. It can either look like a normal stitch or it'll look like a little bump. So just do your best to find where you should be placing these double crochets. So I'm just going to work the whole way around until I reach the end of my neck. Okay, so I believe I have 1 stitch left, so I'm going to work 1 more double crochet. Before I join this round, I'm just going to do a quick check as to whether I have picked up all 46 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and just count that really fast. Okay, I did pick up all of my stitches, so I feel good to go ahead and join this round. So we're going to join the same way we did on the body, and we're just going to insert our hook into the 3rd chain of the chain 3. And then, oh goodness. And then work a slip stitch. So I'm going to repeat that until my turtleneck is about 8 inches. So just a reminder, we're going to begin each row of the turtleneck by chaining 3, and then we're going to just work 1 double crochet in every stitch. So there's going to be no increases or decreases, just straight double crochets. So I'm gonna hop off camera and finish this, and then I will show you how to finish your poncho. Okay, so my turtleneck is approximately 7.5 inches long whenever I measure from the middle of the single crochet row that we did very first when working on the body. I tried it on off camera and I liked how it looked. One thing to note is we made it 8 inches so that it would fold. If you don't want the fold, make it about 3 to 4 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and join my last round, and then I'm going to grab my scissors, cut about a 6-inch tail. I'm going to work a slip knot, or sorry, a chain stitch, pull it tight, and then work 1 more knot by pulling the tail through the loop. So we're almost done. I'm going to grab my darning needle, put both tails through it, and then same thing as I did on the body, I'm going to push my tails to the back of the work, flip open to the inside. I'm going to go down a double crochet and then just go through a couple stitches, pull it, not too tight, and then cut the excess tail. So I then also need to tuck in the beginning of the turtleneck. This is already on the inside for me. I'm gonna cut the tails a little short. So all I'm gonna do here is just work it under a few double crochet stitches. Cut the excess and then flip it to the front. It looks really silly when you don't fold it over, so I'm gonna go ahead and fold it. If you want, you could actually flip it to the inside and secure the fold so the fold never moves. But since this is more of a beginner pattern, I'm just going to flip it to the outside and then wear it like that, because that's also a cute look as well. So our poncho is now complete. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave any comments with any questions you have. And if you complete this tutorial, I would love to see your work. So please tag me on Instagram if you do complete this. Please like and subscribe and let me know if you want to see any other patterns.